Hello, my name is Chocobo Lin, and today I'm going to be talking about a narrative journal written by John Hersey, which is based on the first atomic bomb used in warfare, more precisely in Hiroshima. This narrative has six different characters that it focuses on. The story is told through the lens of these characters. The mood of the story is also much like one in the wars, dark and dreary. Since the setting of both stories take place in wartime, this is to be expected. Much like the character in the wars, Robert Ross, the six civilian protagonists experience firsthand the tragedies of war. These six characters face their own personal conflicts, their own difficult choices, and their own personal wars, very much like Robert Ross. You will find that these two narrative pieces are very much alike in nature. The author of Hiroshima is also able to use literary devices very effectively. John Hersey, through using these devices, told a more coherent and engaging story. His uses of irony, imagery, symbols, allegories, motifs, metaphors, and similes gave the narrative piece a deeper depth of understanding. For example, he used situational irony at the beginning of his story, the false alarm. One of our protagonists, Miss Nakamura, upon hearing an anti-air raid alarm, evacuates with her children to a bomb shelter. However, as she is coming home that same night, she hears a second alarm. Thinking this one to also be false, she chose to let her children stay at home to sleep. And after 15 minutes, the all clear was sounded, the atomic bomb detonated. This is an excellent use of situational irony because the city of Hiroshima is so used to hearing these alarms that when the actual attack occurred, they were not prepared. The author also used extensive levels of imagery to give the audience a clearer picture of what it was like during those times. The eyebrows of some were burned off, and the skin hung from their faces and hands. Others, because of the pain, held their arms up as if carrying something in both hands. End quote. This paragraph, along with many others, are riddled with Hersey's extensive use of imagery to further emphasize the damage inflicted by the bomb, the horror that the survivors faced, and he was also able to draw in the reader's minds the burns, the bloods, the injuries, and the excruciating pains of the survivors. From this, we as readers and the audience feel the true impact that the atomic bomb had on Hiroshima. Much like finally, Hersey was able to depict a close to real image, the gruesome nature of war. But unlike most other narrative pieces, John Hersey did something different when he was utilizing symbolisms. Of course, he used his symbolisms of grass and greenery and nature to depict rebirth and life, and he also was able to employ a symbolism of sanctuary, a safe haven, by implementing Asano Park, as this was a place where most of the survivors were gathered. However, the difference here is that John Hersey uses water not as a symbol for life, however, almost as a symbol for death, as the water in Hiroshima has been mostly radiated by the atomic bomb, and the people who drank from these waters often fell ill and was often led to death. And this is the unique way that John Hersey chose to represent how evil this atomic bomb was, that it was able to corrupt something as natural as water. Metaphors and similes are also very present throughout this narrative piece. They are used to describe atmospheres, mostly. In chapter 1, we see such clouds of dust that had risen that there was a sort of twilight around. Hersey was able to use this metaphor to describe the specific atmosphere around Mr. Tanimoto after the bomb hits. It could also be taken as a start to the beginning of a dark era in the history of Japan. Figuratively and literally, Japan is covered in twilight. There is also a clever simile within the fourth chapter. Quote, he was ashamed of his appearance and remarked to Dr. Machi that he looked like a beggar. This quote is said by Dr. Fuji to Dr. Machi, and this simile is used to bring forth the personal shame that is in place within the culture of Japan and how it affects the lives of the characters within the story. This is also a part of the reason why the characters choose to do what they want to do. The events that the characters go through, as horrid and as terrible as they were, none of them had a truly satisfactory ending. And as for others, life simply went on. The journal doesn't have a conclusion. John Hersey implemented this so that he could reflect that it is not a piece of fiction and not all people have good endings. He chose to do this to drive the theme that life must go on forward, and no matter the tragedy, you must pick yourself back up and you must continue living. And through recording this journal, he believes that he will be able to stop the future generations from making the same mistakes as our forefathers.
Be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another.